Friends, this is Rahul Prasad here and you are welcome to my channel, that is MediConcepts by Rahul Prasad. Today I am going to speak on a very important topic, that is the pathophysiology and the pathogenesis of atherosclerosis, wherein I will be covering very important points like the structure, function and the composition of endothelium, the role of LDL in the pathogenesis of atherosclerosis and the different stages involved. So what exactly is this atherosclerosis? It is basically a chronic inflammatory disease of the arteries. The arteries could be of the mid-size as well as the large size arteries like the aorta, coronary artery and maybe the carotid arteries. It is formed because of the buildup of plaques in the inner walls of the artery. Plaque is basically a collection of lipids like cholesterol, triglycerides, the cellular waste materials, fatty substances, calcium, fibrin, etc., which may get deposited on the inner walls of the arteries. This may pose as a risk factor as it may clog the arteries or block the arteries partially or permanently. If it leads to the heart, then it leads to the coronary artery disease. If it leads to the brain, then it may lead to the ischemic stroke as well. Back to our original topic, that is atherosclerosis. So this atherosclerosis is one of the main risk factors for the development of cardiovascular diseases and it is a leading cause of mortality worldwide. Atherosclerosis may be initiated by endothelial activation followed by a cascade of events that includes lipid accumulation, the formation of fibrous elements, calcification that leads to the narrowing of the arteries and finally leading to the initiation of certain inflammatory pathways. The major events or the adverse events that leads to the formation of atherosclerosis includes the endothelial dysfunction, the formation of the fatty streak, the plaque formation and the plaque rupture that finally leads to the formation of thrombus and the adverse events like the myocardial infarction and the stroke. Endothelial dysfunction is the first step in the process of atherosclerosis. So we have to understand what exactly is endothelial dysfunction. Endothelial dysfunction is characterized by an impairment in the endothelial function with a reduced bioavailability of nitric oxide, that is a vasodilator, with an activated endothelium, that is a state of inflammation, growth and thrombosis, that is a clot formation. Let's understand the composition and the function of endothelium. The vascular endothelium is lined by a monolayer of endothelial cells, that is a single layer of endothelial cells which forms an interface between the circulating blood and the tissues. The large and the mid-size arteries is composed basically of the three layers. The first layer, that is the innermost layer which is facing towards the circulating blood, is called as the tunica intima. Tunica intima is composed of endothelial cells, the collagen and elastic fibers. The second layer, that is the middle layer, is called as the tunica media, which is composed of vascular smooth muscle cells, the collagen and elastic fibers. And the third layer, that is the outermost layer, is called as the tunica adventitia, that is composed of a dense network of connective tissues. Now coming to the function of the endothelium. The endothelium serves a different function like the vascular tone. The endothelium modulates the vascular tone, it mediates hemostasis, it helps in cell proliferation, the release of vasodilators and vasoconstrictors as well as the release of anti-inflammatory molecules. Let us understand the role of LDL particles in the pathogenesis of atherosclerosis. The LDL particles plays a key role in the pathogenesis of atherosclerosis as the frequency with which it enters the arterial wall is determined by their size and the number. The LDL cholesterols are more atherogenic than the VLDL particles as they are 9 times more in number and are smaller as well. The LDL cholesterols patients with hypercholesterolaemia have increased number of LDL particles which makes them more prone or susceptible to the development of coronary artery diseases. The question that arises over here is that how do these LDL cholesterols get oxidized, and the answer is the oxygen free radicals. Now these oxygen free radicals are abundantly found because of the glycation reactions in the cigarette smoke, because of certain oxidative pathways, and also they are released by the macrophages to kill the bacteria. The oxygen free radicals are present and they are very oxygen free radicals are very reactive at the site of double carbon bonds of an organic compound, and these oxygen free radicals are found in abundance near the fatty acids of the phospholipids that forms the outer membrane or the covering of the LDL cholesterol. Now these fatty acids attack on the phospholipids, thereby leading to the formation of the lipid peroxidation products. Moreover, it may also damage the apolipoprotein B100 that is present over the surface of the LDL cholesterol, leading to the alteration in the receptor binding characteristics. So these Oxidatively modified LDL cholesterols are rapidly picked up by the macrophages with the help of scavenger receptor A1, A2 and CD36 to form the foam cells. The major risk factors apart from endothelial dysfunction and the elevated levels of LDL cholesterol, that is in hypercholesterolemia, the other risk factors which are responsible for the progression and initiation of atherosclerosis remains the diabetes, hypertension, age, that is for males it is more than 45 years of age and for females more than 55 years of age, the male gender, obesity, certain types of genetic mutations, sedentary lifestyles and cigarette smoke, oxidative stress, inflammatory markers plays a very important role. Hypertension increases the likelihood that the LDL cholesterol will be embedded and forced into the walls of the artery, thereby leading to the oxidation. Diabetes is a risk factor because the glycation of the glycosaminoglycans of the lipoproteins as well as the LDL cholesterols improves the likelihood that the LDL cholesterol will get embedded into the arterial wall, leading to the oxidation. Because in diabetes what happens is that antioxidant defense network get diminished day by day. Oxidative stress is also a risk factor for the progression and initiation of atherosclerosis because the oxidative stress promotes the synthesis of certain pro-atherogenic cytokines like the interleukin 1, interleukin 6 and TNF alpha, that is tumor necrosis factor alpha. Besides this, they also produce certain chemokines like the chemoattractant, monocyte chemoattractant protein 1, that is MCP1, and also certain adhesion molecules like vascular cell adhesion molecule and the intracell adhesion molecules, thereby inhibiting the release of endothelial nitric oxide synthase and also reduces the bioavailability of nitric oxide, that is the vasodilator, thereby leading to the impairment of the endothelial dependent vasodilation. Let us understand the entire process of atherosclerosis, how exactly this happens. In hypercholesterolemia, because of the elevated levels of cholesterol with the existing comorbidities like the diabetes, hypertension, oxidative stress and the presence of inflammatory markers, this increases the likelihood that the LDL cholesterol will get embedded inside the arterial wall and it gets oxidized. In an endothelial injury or an endothelial damage, the endothelial cells start secreting and recruiting more of the chemokines like the monocyte chemoattractant protein 1, that is MCP1, and certain adhesion molecules like the intracell adhesion molecules and the vascular cell adhesion molecules to trap and recruit more and more circulating monocytes from the bloodstream into the endothelial cells. Thereby what happens is these monocytes get adhered to the endothelium and they are squeezed into the endothelial cells into the intima layer by the process called as diapedesis, wherein they undergo certain morphological changes to form the macrophages. Macrophages start releasing the free radicals which keeps on oxidizing the LDL cholesterol which are embedded inside the intima layer of the endothelium. Now because of the increased number of free radicals, the macrophages keep on eating and overeating this oxidized. These macrophages which are inside the intima layer of the endothelium start releasing the free radicals. Now these free radicals keeps on oxidizing the LDL cholesterols which are embedded inside the intima layer. Because of the increased number of oxidized LDL cholesterols, the macrophages keep on eating and overeating this oxidized LDL, leading to the formation of the foam cells. Now these foam cells start recruiting more of the smooth muscle cells from the tunica media, that is the middle layer of the endothelium. Lipid-laden macrophages that further forms the foam cell start producing certain growth factors like the platelet-derived growth factors to recruit more and more of the smooth muscle cells from the arterial wall into the intima layer to form the fatty streak. Vascular smooth muscle cells get differentiated into fibroblasts and the collagen is laid off. That leads to the development of atheromatous plaque and subsequently the atheromatous lesions. And finally what happens is that the collagen also surrounds the foam cell and undergo apoptosis by the virtue of the enzyme called as collagenase. Leads to the formation of a pool of cholesterol which is trapped inside a fibrous cap. Now the macrophages keep on secreting the enzyme collagenase to weaken this fibrous cap. That leads to the rupture of the fibrous cap leading to a discharge of the cholesterol lake. It may lead to a large atheromatous lesion or otherwise it may lead to the acute occlusion of the coronary artery lumen leading to the adverse consequences like the myocardial infarction and maybe the unstable angina. For in an attempt to arrest the progression of atherosclerosis, in patients with hypercholesterolemia along with the comorbid conditions like diabetes and hypertension. The significant lipid lowering therapies must be initiated aggressively to prevent the progression of coronary artery diseases. Thanks for watching and listening. Have a great day ahead.